welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Should we talk about Barbie softball?
Of course, we need to give the update on our glorious softball team who we love so much.
As a recap, Danielle and I play for the Barbies in a recreation league in Denver. It is a gay league, which is a lot of fun. Our team is called the Barbies.
Although some of our shirts, when we got the new uniforms, just say the Barbie.
No, not even the Barbie. Just
Barbie.
So,
but collectively, we make the Barbies.
If you could imagine, on the team shirt, it says our team name. We are the Barbies as a team, but each of us as an individual just has a shirt that says Barbie.
It's really something. I don't know. Something happened when we were making the uniforms. But regardless, we still won 2 games today in our doubleheader.
The second one was the nail biter against a team that historically we have beaten very well in the past.
They've gotten better, though, and they picked up some players, and they looked a lot better today.
Their name is TNT. We can call them out. I don't think anyone listens from our league.
Our hitting was not great in that game. We got ourselves in a hole, and we had a little by little crawl back out of it.
Who won the game for us? None other than Danielle Bryan herself, sitting right across from me.
I still think Tater sliding in to second head first when we were up to bat instead of getting the third out so that we could score, because without that, even if I made my play, we would have been going into another inning. So I really think she's the MVP there.
Tater is our left fielder.
It was a great play.
She did have a great slide. We went into the bottom of the inning. We had to hold them no runs because we were up by 1.
I think all balls came to me the last inning, right? Because I had the grounder.
First out. Yep.
Got that. Then someone got on base, on first base, and then a line drive was hit near me, caught
up the middle.
And the girl on first just was like head down, charging to second.
She didn't realize that the line drive was caught.
And I was able to throw her out at first for the double play.
It was beautiful. It was wonderful.
Thanks.
Yep.
It made me feel better about how I've been feeling about my play. I just have been feeling really old lately, and that play made me think I still got it.
I have also been feeling old because I have been sliding around. I slid for the first time last weekend.
That's all I've heard about all week is how much pain you've been in, and it looks painful, and it's just not good.
I got a really bad, because I don't wear any sliding gear when we
also
play.
Dumb.
Well, I know. But I didn't have any plans to slide. But last weekend, we were getting our asses handed to us by the Smarties, our arch nemesis. We can't beat them. They're just too good. So we were getting our butts kicked last weekend. I was angry, and I was rounding third base coming home. The score was 18-2 at the time.
Oh, don't tell anyone.
And I just slid right into home because I wanted to make sure I was safe and that there were no issues. And I stood up and my entire leg was bloody. Big, nice rash on my bottom. I've been dealing with it all week. This is TMI, but I've just been pussing all over the house.
So gross.
It is gross. And then today, in our first game, I dove for a ball in the outfield. Didn't catch it. I gave myself whiplash, and I'm still not feeling 100%.
You're not?
No.
Carolyn,
I feel...
When I asked you before, you said you were feeling better.
I feel like someone took me and shook me really hard. I have rocks in my brain and they all just jumbled around.
Great. So I need to be on concussion watch all night.
Yeah. We have a friend who plays with us, Liz, and she checked me for a concussion and she said I look good. So
I keep telling you not to dive. Like, it's not worth it. And today you were not supposed to dive in the outfield and you decided to anyways.
It rained last night here in Denver, and so the field was wet, and so it's perfect sliding conditions. I knew that I had someone backing me up if I dove for the ball. It was a crazy ball to dive for. I probably was never going to get it. And so I was like, I'm just going to go for it. But I just, when you fall down and you have to check yourself, like, am I okay? I had to do that. And I was like, I don't really know if I'm okay. And then I felt kind of just strange the rest of the day, and just a clear indication that I'm too old. My first step is not as fast as it used to be.
Yeah.
I know, but 2 wins for the Barbies. We've got a couple more games and then we're headed into playoffs. We'll see what happens. We love to play. It is a comical time.
Just playing recreation sports as adults is just fun. Great way to meet people. Great way to relive the glory days, even if we're a bit slower and not as good. Still have a great time.
And when a good play does happen, it gets everybody
pumped.
Everyone
gets fired up.
Both teams get pumped when someone does something semi-athletic out there.
It is fun.
Let's highlight some more softball.
Yeah.
Softball that's way better played than what we do. Let's get into the Softball World Cup. The 2024 Women's Softball World Cup, this is the 18th one, is an international softball tournament that took place this past week in Ireland, Spain, and Italy. The finals were held in Italy. It featured group stages, and then, like I said, the finals were in Italy this past Saturday. This is the first time that Ireland, Italy, and Spain have hosted a major softball tournament. It's also the first time that more than one nation has hosted the tournament, which is really great because softball and baseball are very American sports. And so to see it expand and to see Ireland and Italy and Spain take it on was great.
Especially given that they're not going to be in the Olympics this year.
And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about this World Cup. In this Softball World Cup, they play every 2 years. The United States are the defending champs. There is no softball in the 2024 Olympics. And I tried to do some research on exactly why that was. And at first I thought it was an infrastructure issue where France perhaps didn't have enough infrastructure to support it. There's this big talk around the Olympics of, do we need to build a stadium for every sport in the Olympics? It's not very good to the climate. It's not very good to the people who have to work it. It's not very good for the community if you just have to build up these things that only get used once and then never get used again. So I thought that was maybe it. But it doesn't seem like that is the reason. It seems like the reason is due to popularity. The IOC, the International Olympic Committee, made the decision that they were not going to be played. I also think it's interesting that they group softball and baseball together. I don't like that softball and baseball are grouped together because they are incredibly different games.
Yeah, they're different sports.
So in the sense that baseball may not be as popular, I don't know if you can automatically group baseball and softball together.
I agree. I think when you look at College World Series, I think there's so much more traction with softball College World Series versus baseball. I mean, I never hear anything about baseball. Maybe that's because my personal interests align with women's sports.
I don't know if it was softball was not as popular or baseball was not as popular and then it was just grouped together. All that to say, there will not be any softball in the 2024 Olympics, which is a bummer. However, in 2028, when the Olympics are held in LA, softball is on the docket. They are going to be played in Oklahoma City.
We should go. We could probably drive there, right?
We should go and maybe we could drive there. And I think this points to some of the infrastructure, right? Oklahoma City already has this great fan base, two, a great stadium. LA doesn't necessarily have that infrastructure, although I was like, why can't they play at UCLA? Instead of building something up, they're going to just move it to Oklahoma City, which is great for us and great for the people who live near there. But I was also wondering if the players who play on that team are a little bit bummed to not be around all the other athletes.
I would, because the Olympic Village is this huge piece of the Olympics. There's so much mystery about the Olympic Village and just being around and being able to see the other events.
And usually all the Olympic events are held in different places and things like that, but somewhat centrally located. All this to say, the 2024 Olympics, there won't be any softball, but there still is softball happening, which is great. So the national team gets some experience. In this 2024 Women's Softball World Cup, it came down to world number 1 USA versus world number 3 Japan. To get here, the USA beat the Netherlands, who were ranked number 8, and Japan beat Canada, who were ranked number 5. In this finals game, Japan beat the United States in the finals 6-1 to win the Women's Softball World Cup in 2024. It was in front of a sellout crowd of 3,200
That's
people.
it?
That is it.
Wow.
Sellout crowd. I read that and I was
not
like,
a lot of people.
Wow. In Italy is where it was played. So gaining some traction, but I was like, wow, that is a low sellout crowd. When we look at this Women's Softball World Cup, Japan finished second in the 2016, 2018, and 22 World Games. So the past 3 games. They didn't play in 2020 because of COVID. Since 2002, Japan or the US have won or the other has came in second since 2002. So that means it's always been Japan and the US in the final, and one has either won or come in second.
That's insane.
And the past 3 times the US has won, and now Japan won. The US scored 1 run in the first, and then they didn't score again. And if you're wondering who is on this US national team, I'll also say the USA softball webpage, not great. We need to invest some more. Yeah. It was confusing. It was hard to navigate. It was hard to figure out who was playing where. It's interesting that each national team in the US has their own way of doing things, and you can tell how much funding they're receiving. But Jocelyn Allo, she played at Oklahoma, one of the best, probably the best hitter I've ever seen in my entire life. She plays for them. Kelly Maxwell, who was actually pitching in this previous Women's College World Series, she actually played at Oklahoma State and then transferred to Oklahoma and got a World Series win for them. She played as well. Amanda Lorenz from Florida and Maya Brady from UCLA are some of the names that were on the team. So US comes home with a silver in the Women's Softball World Cup, and we will see them in 2 years again at the Women's Softball World Cup and 4 years from now in Oklahoma City. Let's get into our other highlight for the week, WNBA All-Star Weekend.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it. All the different things, the skills, the 3-point contest, the game. Let's get into it.
And first, I want to start with the outfits.
Of course.
Because people showed up to the orange carpet and they looked great.
And you can look at the WNBA Instagram and they post a lot of the outfits.
On the first night, the first step out, I was impressed by a couple people, and I want to mention them. Jonquel Jones, who plays for the New York Liberty, had this Louis Vuitton vest on. I thought she looked so good. I thought her makeup looked great. Asia Wilson, she called it her nothing but net outfit. And it was nothing but net all on her body. Yep. And she, wow, it was really, really pretty. And she rocked it. Jackie Young, who plays for the Las Vegas Aces, and Brianna Stewart, who plays for the New York Liberty, they both had on a version of a black suit, 2 totally different outfits. I thought they both looked so good.
That's awesome.
I thought Caitlin Clark dressed really well all weekend. I really did.
I heard her talking because obviously throughout the season they always show the players' outfits, and I heard her say that she works with a stylist and she'll tell her stylist the look, the vibe she's going for, and then her stylist will pair her with outfits. So I'd have to imagine if I had a stylist, I'd look good too.
It speaks to this idea of like how important endorsements are, because if you can have the money to have a stylist who can then outfit you for these things, it can really go a long way. And I really do think style is important to shaping who you are as a person and a player. Well, you come to expect certain things from Asia Wilson, from Kelsey Plum, from Jackie Young. I know I listened.
Yeah, you start to build a brand.
Yes. And Caitlin Clark is finding this look that I think is really nice. And when we think back to the days of when Sue Bird was playing, and when she was first playing, when Diana Taurasi was first playing, and when they had their draft nights and they had to wear business casual, to now where people can actually show more about themselves through the way that they dress. That's why I love style so much, because I feel like you can learn a lot about a person, and it's a really big plus if you have a stylist to help you create the image that you want and not have to worry about money as much.
Style stresses me out because I am always wondering, what is my style? I have no idea. And for me, if I was in the WNBA, I'd be like, I just want to play basketball. And really? I feel like it turned into this thing where everyone's curious about what people are going to wear walking up. And for me, I think that would stress me out.
If you were to talk to a stylist, so what would you say?
I guess it would just depend on the day. I just would want something that looked flattering, but I don't even know. I'd have to figure that out along the way, but it would definitely stress me out more than anything.
Do you think you would do more feminine or more masculine?
I feel like I usually dress in between for the most part. So somewhere on the more casual side, but not really one way or the other. I feel like generally speaking, I'm pretty in the middle.
I feel like I would want to change it up every night, which I think Sydney Colson does really good at, where some of her outfits that she comes out in are super, super feminine, and then some are on the more masculine side, and she is able to look great in either. And I love when someone's able to do that.
What do you think your style would be?
I don't know, because it's like what you feel most comfortable in, right? What you feel most confident in is what is going to look good on you, because if you can feel confident in it, it's just naturally going to look good. In everyday life, I tend to dress more feminine.
Yeah, you do.
When I'm in workout clothes, I'm in workout clothes. It's either I'm in workout clothes or I'm dressing more on the feminine side. All right, so let's get into the actual stuff of the weekend. We started off with the skills competition.
And this was on Friday night. The skills competition is just different and fun to watch, and watch all the other players watch and root for their teammates. I like that part.
It's really a who's who. You spend just as much time panning to people in the crowd and seeing their reactions of players and people in attendance as you do watching the players, which is what I really like because I feel like I'm part of it more. Who did you want to win the skills competition?
You know, I love Marina Mabry was the Chicago Sky, and she just transferred to the Connecticut Sun. She is a former Notre Dame grad.
This was the first time she was in the Connecticut Sun jersey. Was that the skills
very
competition?
Interesting. And I wanted her to win both the skills and the 3-point contest.
The winner was none other than Alicia Gray from the Atlanta Dream. She also went to South Carolina.
Yes. And before you get into that, one thing I am annoyed at by the skills competition is with the shooting, you get 3 shots, but you don't necessarily need to make the shot. If you just throw up 3 crappy shots and they don't go in, but your time is better than someone else and you get to pass through the obstacles and this and that, you can still win. And I do not like that about that competition.
I know, but Danielle, we're on TV. We can't have people shooting and shooting and shooting until it goes in.
Well, they should make it. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, they didn't. I mean, hardly.
Well, that's their fault. But you should not win. You should get more points
if you
or
actually
time.
Make it in.
It should like cut time off your total
That's
time.
a good point.
And I know if you make the first shot, it technically does.
Yeah.
If I shoot 3 shots and make the third, and you shoot 3 shots and don't make any, but your time is faster than mine, I think that's BS. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse.
Take it up with Kathy Engelberg.
Oh, yeah.
Write her a letter. Call her up.
Alicia Gray, go ahead.
Alicia Gray won the skills competition. She was moving quickly and she was not missing.
No, I was more so thinking like Sophie Cunningham beat Marina Mabry out, but she didn't make any shots. So I'm not even talking about Alicia Gray. It was more so that piece, but sorry, go ahead.
If you want to come for Sophie Cunningham, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Alicia Gray won the skills competition and she wears these rec specs.
Which the announcers were clowning her on the TV. They were like, wow, she's got her protective goggles on.
And they're not even prescription. They're just there for protection.
And Asia Wilson was also sitting in the stands wearing similar or the same goggles, which is funny.
Yeah. Ryan Howard, who plays with her on the Atlanta Dream, also had her rec specs on in support for Alicia Gray. And I love that. And I love Alicia Gray. She played at South Carolina. She is from Georgia. She is so Southern. She is so soft-spoken and she's a baller. Mm-hmm. So she powers through that skills competition. And then we went into the 3-on-3. Real quick on the 3-on-3. It's going to be played in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. It is a crazy game. Mm-hmm. The speed at which it moves, they have a shot clock that is much lower than the shot clock in a regular game. They move so fast. It is more about the speed and how quickly you can get off a shot than anything else. I was amazed watching it. Yep. I cannot wait to watch it in the Olympics. It is a totally different game than your 5-on-5. And I had a really good time watching it. So I was glad that they showcased that and gave us like a little bit more of a taste of what we could watch in the Olympics. That was going to be fun.
Yeah, I think the fast pace is what makes it so exciting. So definitely interested to see how the U.S. does. But that was fun to watch as well.
Then we get into the 3-point competition. I know that Jonquel Jones can shoot. We talked about her last week as having one of the best shooting percentages in the league. Mm-hmm. But oh my gosh.
Yeah. And Jonquel Jones is like 6'7", something crazy. Don't quote me on her height, but she is very tall. She is a forward. I also was not expecting her to shoot as well as she did.
Her first round, she was draining them.
Yeah.
Steph Dolson, another big, was shooting those threes. It was really cool to see. Sabrina Ionescu and Caitlin Clark did not participate in the 3-point contest. And at first I was like, oh, this is not like the best 3-point shooters. But I was so impressed. It takes so much effort to go from stop to stop to stop. You have to have leg strength. You have to have stamina.
I remember at the Final Four weekend, we went to Town and did the 3-point contest. And it is exhausting. So you have to be moving.
Alicia Gray from the Atlanta Dream wins the 3-point contest.
First one to ever win both the skills challenge and the 3-point contest in the same year.
She beats out Jonquel Jones. It's super impressive. By winning both contests, she took home $115,000, which is, fun fact, 62% of her 2024 WNBA salary
insane.
Of $185,000. So she takes home a big check from winning both of those.
That's a nice extra cash.
And the way that breaks down is the WNBA provides only only $2,575 for each competition. But Aflac stepped in with a sponsorship deal and provided $55,000 to the 3-point winner and to the skills competition.
Good for Aflac. That's great.
Thank you, Aflac. And Alicia Gray, what a night to win quite a bit of money.
For sure. That was awesome.
And then we get into the All-Star game, which happened on Saturday night. So we watched this at a brewery in Denver called Gold Spot, and they were collaborating with the 99ers. We've talked about the 99ers quite a bit. They're going to be a new women's sports bar that's opening up in Denver, the first of its kind.
Yes.
And so they did a little collaboration to host an All-Star Watch event.
It was really cool to see so many people show up to watch the game, and there were people in uniforms, like different WNBA uniforms. They were clearly there for this event. Line out the door, it was packed. There were people outside, inside. 99ers were selling gear. I'm wearing my hat right now that we got. We got cool
all
shirt.
The gear.
Just really excited for them to hopefully open up soon. It looks like on their Instagram, they put some taps in. Just cool to see what they're doing for the community and to see how many people are continuously coming together. And then we met another listener in the wild, as you like to say.
Yes.
So shout out to Brittany. Thank you for saying hi to us. As we said, we love meeting people who listen and just really appreciate it. I hope we can continue to see the community grow in Denver of people watching women's sports. And I think as soon as 99ers open, we'll continuously see people there, and just who knows, maybe one day that will even result in us getting a women's sports team. Who would have thought? That would be such a great idea.
And I think it will be the result of all this community effort.
I hope so.
What Dia is doing with the WNBA club, what Annie and Miranda are doing with the 99ers, they are creating a community that's saying, we watch women's sports and we get people together, and people show up and they line up outside. That is so good. So if we ever do get a team, it's going to be because of people like the amazing people we get to interact with and see.
For sure. Also, the game was so much fun and so exciting to watch. And we were with our friends, Trish, Ryan, and Claudia, and just super fun night. But let's get into the game.
And I just want to say, too, Phoenix was a great city to host. It looked like everyone was having fun there. They had a stage set up behind the court where they were introducing players, where they had their halftime show. Vibes were super high. They had Pitbull perform at halftime, which we will get into. But Team WNBA won 117-109 over Team USA in front of 16,407 fans at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona, a sellout crowd.
I was worried this would happen just because you don't want to see Team USA lose. Overall, really exciting game. I've said it from the jump. Why isn't Enrique Gumbawale on the U.S. team? She did pull her name out of the hat, so there wasn't even a chance for her to be on. I know she got snubbed in the past, and maybe that's why. It's just watching her play against the U.S. team, and every time you watch her play, she is just a baller. Like, there's no other way to put it. She's doing step-back threes with 3 hands in her face and just draining them, and it is just ridiculous. And she had 34 points, and the whole WNBA team was just going nuts. They just were having so much fun, and she scored, all her points in the second half, or most of them?
She had 0 points in the first half. 0.
They were saying at halftime, Cheryl Miller, who was coaching the WNBA team, because they were all like making fun at it at the end of the game, that she went up to Enrique and was like, take a deep breath. And all the girls were like reenacting the deep breath she took at halftime. And man, she came out with vengeance and just went off.
And like you said, she took her name out of the pool of candidates for the U.S. women's national team earlier this year. And I think that's really unfortunate because we obviously could use her. And whatever's happening behind the scenes there, we've talked about this process before when we've talked about Gina Auriemma and Candace Parker, that snubs happen. It's really unfortunate. And then it's even more unfortunate that someone felt the need that they needed to remove themselves from even
being considered
because they thought that another snub would potentially happen. So she comes out, she scores 34 points.
And with that, it's a record for a WNBA game. Most points scored in a WNBA All-Star game. So just a record there in itself. And for it all to happen in the second half is insane.
Angel Reese became the first rookie to record a double-double.
Of course, double-double queen. Who else?
12 points and 11 rebounds. rebounds. And then Caitlin Clark finished with 10 assists.
And which was also a rookie record for the WNBA All-Star game. They were saying 11 is the all-time assist record in the WNBA All-Star game, held by Sue Bird, and they were asking her about it during the game, but she didn't end up beating it. But 10 assists, not too shabby.
And then for Team USA, Breanna Stewart finished with a team high 31 points,
Unreal.
10 rebounds, and 3 assists. Do you think this is bad for Team USA?
No, I don't. I think the WNBA is the most competitive basketball league in the world, and no team is going to go out without a fight. You're playing all-stars of the WNBA all around. It's still an all-star game. You're just taking the team that was selected for the Olympics and then the rest of the all-stars. So at the end of the day, it's all those players could be on Team USA. And I think if you put the WNBA All-Star team up against everyone else in the world, we'd still win. So I don't think it's bad.
That's a great point.
People are going to say what they're going to say, and is it a good look per se? Probably not. But do I think it's bad? Do I think they're unprepared? Absolutely not. They have incredible players on that team.
It's better to lose in an all-star game against Team WNBA than it is to lose against whoever you're going to play in the Olympics in an early round to get knocked out. That would be tragic.
Overall, super fun to watch. And then it was also fun seeing people in the stands.
Yes, and that's what I want to say. It looks like the players were having so much fun. The fans were having so much fun. The row of Sue Bird, Megan Rapinoe, and Aubrey Plaza. Aubrey Plaza was on Parks and Recreation. She was in White Lotus. She's so funny. She is a sports fan, but I've seen her play a little bit of basketball. She's not like the most athletic person, but she loves to be there. And we don't need you to be athletic in order to watch. They were getting lit in that first row.
They definitely looked a little drunk out there.
From what Caitlin Clark said, Sue Bird was talking shit. Aubrey Plaza had a crutch. So Phoenix Mercury have this new practice facility. The new court is named after Diana Taurasi. It's this new, beautiful practice facility that they got to show off this past weekend. Rumor has it that Aubrey Plaza was playing a game of horse on one of the practice courts and she tore her ACL.
That is horrific.
So she was at the All-Star game with a crutch. She was getting turned. They were all talking trash. And I just was like, what I would give to just be sitting in between those three.
Wishing her a speedy recovery, though. That really sucks.
Oh, and one more thing. We have to talk about Pitbull at halftime.
No, he does not deserve it. I'm sorry. That performance was subpar.
Maybe it was better in person. Mr. Worldwide, we love you. But I thought there were other options. We were saying Chaperone would have been the move.
Yeah, it really would have been.
Or Renee Rapp would have been the move. But they went with Pitbull. He had a song dedicated to the women, but it was just...
Nothing against Pitbull. Just don't think the performance was great.
It was really something. Team USA will face Germany in London today when we release at 3 p.m. Eastern time. This is the final exhibition match before they head over to Paris. And then they begin their Olympic group play on Monday, July 29th, which just happens to be Danielle Brogan-Bryan's birthday.
Yay, my birthday's coming. Give me some basketball. Love it. So switching gears a little bit, and this is a little more less traditional than some of the things we've been talking about, but I've been really wanting to get into ultra running to talk about, and I think ultra running is on the rise more and more, and I think it would be a cool thing to dive into.
Can you talk about what an ultra marathon is and what that means?
Yep. A few months ago, we talked about Jasmine Paris, and she was the first woman to complete the Barkley Marathons. If you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend listening because it is the most wild race I've ever heard of. And if you look into what the Barkley Marathons is, you'll understand where we're coming from.
And go back and listen to episode 10. It's called March Madness Gamecock Softball and WTF is Fell Running, because you just need to listen to it. It is the most absurd thing in the world. But anyway, go ahead.
So what is an ultra marathon? It is a race that covers a distance longer than a standard road marathon. So a road marathon is 26.2 miles. So technically anything more than 26.2 miles is an ultra. Standard race distances are typically start at a 50K.
A regular marathon, for reference, is like 42K.
And a 50K is just a little over 31 miles, to give you an idea. Other standard ultra marathon distances are 50 miles, 100K, 100 miles, and there's races longer than 100 miles, which is just baffling to me. And before we moved to Colorado, the only time I've ever heard of anyone running an ultramarathon is one of my assistant college coaches who I played for. Her husband would run 100-mile races. I had never heard of such a thing. She would just be like, oh yeah, he went for a 40-mile run this morning, a training run. I was like, what? She would always say how he would hallucinate on these races and just craziness. And then we move out to Colorado and you hear about it all the time.
Everyone ultramarathons.
Yeah.
Not me, but everybody else does.
Have you ever heard of it before we moved out here?
No.
You move out here and everyone in Colorado does these crazy things. We always say if we're hiking on a trail in our hiking boots, you'll see someone running next to you in sandals up the same mountain. There's just extreme sports out here. And ultramarathons are definitely an extreme sport. And one person in particular that I want to dive into today is Courtney Dauwalter, because she, from a women's perspective, now there's a lot of great women ultramarathoners out there, but I do want to focus in on her because I feel like she's been putting women on the map more in the sport, and she's just been winning a ton of races, and we'll get into that more. While I was looking into things more, I came across an interesting study about men versus women in ultra running. There's a lot of talk about how women perform better the longer the distance gets versus how men perform. So the gap between men and women shrinks when the trail running distance increases. And the one study I found, it was an analysis of nearly 40,000 trail races from 1989 to 2021. And while men are 10% faster than women in your typical marathon, studies have shown that the gap has reported as 9% over 50 miles. So it drops from 10 to 9, and then 5% over any race that's over 24 hours. So we're getting away from distance and going to time. 4% over 100 miles. So it's a little tricky of how to explain it, but basically the longer the distance and the longer they're out there, women are closing the gap between male and female.
Over 100 miles, men are only 4% faster than women compared to 10% when they're running a road marathon.
Correct. So now let's talk about Courtney Dauwalter. Courtney is 39 years old and she's an American ultra runner, former teacher, which I thought was pretty cool. She was raised in Hopkins, Minnesota. She was an athlete growing up. No surprise there. She competed in track, cross country, and Nordic skiing growing up. And she was a 4-time Minnesota state champion in Nordic skiing.
Wow.
She attended the University of Denver, go Denver, on a cross country skiing scholarship and studied biology.
And University of Denver is expensive.
And it's right down the street from us. And then she went on to earn a master's degree in teaching at the University of Mississippi in 2010. Following her education, she taught biology, chemistry, and physical sciences to middle and high school students in the Denver area, which I think is pretty cool because I just feel like science is so closely related to our bodies and how we move. So I wonder if that had anything to do with her love for running. In 2017, she transitioned to become a full-time professional runner and now lives in Leadville, Colorado.
Leadville, Colorado is really high elevation, really known for its running, and hosts a 100-mile race.
It's a very famous race, Leadville 100. I just love Leadville. We try to camp there at least once a summer. The town is super cute. It is insanely beautiful. It's just a cool spot, and I think for an ultramarathoner, it is the place to live. You're in high elevation all the time. You're surrounded by insane mountains, and the Leadville 100 is there.
So we're talking about Courtney Dauwalter. What makes her so good?
First, I want to talk about her early successes, which took place in 2016 and 2017. So back in 2016, she set a course record at the Javelina 100. She also won the Run Rabbit Run, which is a 100-mile race in Steamboat, Colorado, finishing 75 minutes ahead of second place, who is a male. In 2017, she ran Run Rabbit Run again, the 100-mile race, and won despite battling temporary blindness in the final 12 miles.
Okay, this is how are we allowing someone to run when they are not blind ever in their normal life, but are running way too many miles that then they are now blind?
And I don't know. She probably should have been taken out of that one. In 2017, she also won the Moab 240 race. She completed it in 2 days, 9 hours, and 59 minutes. And she finished over 10 hours ahead of the second place finisher. Then she set, at the time, the record for the longest run in 24 hours. The race was set for 24 hours. How far can you run? And she covered 155.391 miles. And this was during the Riverbank One-Day Classic.
She is able to get to a place where it doesn't matter how she feels physically. She's just able to go.
The one thing she did in 2023 is she achieved something that most people thought was not possible. In the course of a span of about 9 weeks, she triple crowned. They consider the Western States 100, Hard Rock 100, and UTMB. And more recently, a few weeks ago, she completed the Hard Rock 100 and set another course record. The Hard Rock 100 is a 102.5 mile loop with a 33,197 feet of climb and elevation. And she finished in 26 hours, 11 minutes, and 49 seconds.
So for reference, for people who are like, what does all this elevation mean? Anytime that we go on a hike and it's over 1,000 feet of elevation that we're going to have to climb, that means that it's going to be a more difficult hike for us normal people.
I mean, when we look at a hike, if there's anything over 1,000 feet of elevation gain, I'm like, no,
too hard.
I don't feel like doing that today for the most part. So yeah, that's her most recent accomplishment. I think her name is getting bigger. I think the ultra world is getting bigger. One of the things that I always think about is you have these people who are running these crazy distances and she's doing them back to back to back. Like last year, she ran the 3 100-mile races within 9 weeks and won them all. So I think in my head, how do you keep going? And she talks about a few things that I found really interesting. One, she doesn't plan her training days ahead. Which to me, I'm a very structured person. I'm like, I like to know a few weeks out, what does my training look like? I can be flexible. I know if I'm not feeling great one day or if something changes in my schedule, I can switch it up. But I like to have a plan. I like to know what I'm working with. She just wakes up, sees how she feels, and decides what she's going to do that day. Now, this is from 2021. I'd be curious to see if she still does it that way. But she basically said she wants to know how she feels that day. If she has something set ahead of time, she doesn't want to feel guilty about not doing that. Whereas if you don't have a plan, you just wake up and do it. But to me, I think you almost have to be more disciplined to wake up and be like, I'm going to do this. Because if I didn't have a plan, I'd be like, I don't need to run today.
Yeah.
Also, nutrition is a big thing in long distance running because you can't just run on fumes. You have to make sure you're taking in calories and what are those calories and what's going to upset your stomach, this and that.
How many miles do you have to run before you start fueling?
It's definitely different for everyone. For me, it's taken me years to understand what I should be doing. Me personally, for most of the time, if I'm going to be running an hour and a half or more, I'm going to be fueling at points in that run. It doesn't mean I wait for the hour and a half mark to take in fuel. But if I know I'm running an hour, 45 minutes, I'll probably take a gel halfway through or something.
Got it.
But she was pretty lax. Like when she first started on, she was pretty lax about her fueling strategy and also just her everyday eating. She says she eats what she wants, when she wants, how much she wants, depending on how she feels.
If you're running 40 miles a day, but my stomach could never handle that.
But that's what I mean. Like you have to be careful about what you can't be eating donuts and bonbons all day and
bonbons. Wow.
And like fried food. And I'm sure she doesn't, but I just thought it was interesting. So one, she doesn't plan her training ahead, and two, her diet's pretty lax. She did say over the years she realized she had to take in more like protein shakes after long efforts to recover, so she's gotten better at that. But what I liked is she said her and her husband don't want to live through life restricting themselves on what they eat. If she goes out, she wants to enjoy what she's eating and not worry about it. Another thing is the pain cave. So she talks about the pain cave. What are your thoughts on the pain cave?
My impression of the pain cave is when you get to a point where everything is just painful and it's like, okay, here we go. I think this is what sets people apart. I think this is what sets really elite athletes from professional athletes or from regular athletes. And this is the part that I struggle with the most. When things get difficult for me is when I want to like stomp my feet, cry about it, and stop. We've talked about resiliency on this podcast before. I think when you enter the pain cave, you find out how resilient you are, how quickly you are able to bounce back, how quickly you're able to endure and be in it and be present with it rather than trying to push it away or rather than making every excuse on why you need to stop. This piece is what I think is an essential part of what separates people from being good and great and even great to the best.
I agree. I think it's definitely something I'm still working on. If I do a hard track workout or if I'm in a race and all of a sudden things feel like they're getting really hard, I will back off. And it's like, how do you get past that point where you're not backing off as soon, to your point, as something starts hurting? What Courtney said is for the longest time, she would just try to avoid the pain cave for as long as possible. So if she was in a 100-mile race, she would just try to avoid it for as much as she can. And once she found herself in the pain cave, she would just try to survive it. She was just like, I just got to survive this. She flipped her thought process around, and now she said she looks forward to the pain cave because she knows once she's there, she can celebrate it because that's when the real work and the real growth starts to happen.
I think both of these mindsets are great. Being able to even say that once I get in the pain cave, I'm just going to try to survive. I even think that's a better outlook than what most people would have. Yeah. And then she's like, okay, I'm looking forward to it because that's where the real work happens. I just do worry. And maybe it's because I don't understand it nearly enough yet. But when you're getting to the point where you're hallucinating and where you're losing vision, are you causing long-term damage to yourself? It almost sounds like a meditation for her where she's able to just be in that moment and be with it. I honestly do worry about the long-term effects of this high endurance where it's almost celebrated that you're
in pain.
More than in pain, I'm not able to see is a crazy idea to me.
It is interesting, but I think that's what keeps her going. Mindset is everything. I think we've talked about this in individual sports. I will not call ultramarathoning an individual sport because you need a crew. You need people in your corner to help you. But at the end of the day, there's one person running all those miles. Yes. That part is individual, and your mentality just has to be on a different level. But I can understand where you're coming from of like, is that harmful?
And I say all of that, and I'm working on my own mentality, right? Like there are so many things that I admire about everything that she says she does because I'm on the opposite spectrum. When things get hard, I just want to stop and not do them anymore. This is what makes an elite athlete the best, to be able to be like, I actually like it. And I don't care if I'm hurting myself because I'm able to be with it and get through it and win these things. And so, that's what separates me. There are many things that separate me and Courtney Dauwalter, but that's a major one. And it is one I'm working on. Even when we were playing softball this past weekend, I had a hit. It was a pop-up and I swung at the first pitch and I was like, why can't I just not swing at the first pitch? And then I go into the field and I'm still thinking about it. And now I'm on defense. I'm in a totally different place and I'm still thinking about my last at bat. And I was like, here's your mental game. You did it. Feel what it feels like to make a mistake. And now what are you going to do next? Yeah. Like you have to move past it. I know we're talking about rec softball, but those are little shifts in my head that I'm still working on. How do I move past it? How do I feel the feelings and then move past?
And it translates to everyday life. All these things, these mindsets, whether it's at work or your personal life. So I can definitely relate with that. More exciting things to come with Courtney Dauwalter. If you don't know who she is, look her up. She's incredible and she's just a beast in the ultra community. And after her most recent race, she was asked what's next. She is going to be switching gears and crewing her husband, who is running the Leadville 100 in August. And I'm super excited because we're going to be in Leadville that weekend and we're planning to be around for the race. So I really hope we see her there. But she said in the interview, I just hope I can do as good of a job crewing and pacing him as he does for me because he is like in her corner at all her races. So now she gets to see the other side. And then she said, we'll see what's next after that. So she didn't reveal what other races she has on the calendar. Outside of that, let's talk about what we're looking forward to this week.
Get your Peacock subscription ready. Get your NBC on, or steal your friends, steal your ex-boyfriends, your ex-girlfriends, because the Olympics are here.
Yes, I cannot believe they are here. So exciting.
Live coverage of the opening ceremony is on Friday, July 26th on NBC and Peacock beginning at 12 p.m. Eastern time. What I'm looking forward to is a U.S. soccer group stage. The first game actually begins the day before the opening ceremony on July 25th.
Oh my gosh.
They're taking on Zambia at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I will definitely be tuning into that. This is going to be difficult. Zambia is led by Barbara Banda and Rachel Kundananji, who play in the NWSL. This is not going to be an easy match, and it's going to be a great match to watch. So I think that is going to be really fun. What do you have for us, Dee?
Swimming also gets started right away, and there's so much swimming going on. I will highlight a couple of the finals. So Saturday, July 27th, we have the women's 400 meter freestyle at 2:52 p.m. Eastern. Don't be late. Katie Ledecky, might have heard her name once or twice, will be looking to reclaim the 400 meter title after finishing second to Australia's, you didn't want to tell me there was a hard name involved.
No.
Australia's Ariarne Titmus. She also qualified for the 200 meter freestyle, 400 meter freestyle, 800 meter freestyle, 1500 meter freestyle, 4x200 meter freestyle relay, but will not be competing in the 200 meter freestyle so she can focus on her other several million events that she's doing.
Could you imagine? She qualified, but she's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
I think she has enough on her plate. Let's see how many golds she can win in this lineup.
The women's 4x100 freestyle relay final is also on Saturday, July 27th, following the women's 400 meter freestyle.
And then Monday, July 29th, my birthday, is the women's 200 meter freestyle final at 3:41 p.m. Eastern.
Like Danielle said, there are so many swimming events happening. Get on NBC, check out the schedule, see what you want to watch, but swimming is coming in strong. We'll have soccer starting. There are so many things to watch. You can turn on the TV and literally watch all day. That's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks so much for joining us.